everyone, how's it going? So what am I working on now? Well, I got a Dodge Grand Caravan. It's eerily similar to mine. Just about, it's actually the darker shade of my color. It's optioned out pretty much the same, except this one has a 4-liter. I have the 3.8. Personal preference, I prefer the 3.8 over the 4-liter. That's just a personal preference thing. They seem to be good motors. I just was never a huge fan of them, that's all. So what's the complaint? Customer's complaint is it shifts odd when it gets hot. Okay. So what's the first thing you do in a situation like this? Well, you check training fluid. Let's check the training fluid first. I already checked it, but I'm going to pretend that I didn't do that. Okay, so let's go underneath the hood here. All right, so there's your 4-liter. Here's the Dodge Caravan, very similar to mine. Actually, I don't even know what year this thing is. 2010 maybe? 2010, actually. Yep, right there. Okay, so underneath the hood here. Down here is your point of where you're going to check your fluid. Let's see if I can't put a light here somewhere. You can actually see. Yep, there's your point of where you're going to check it. Okay. Pull that out. It's just a plug. Oh no, no, what do I do now? How do I check the fluid level? I don't have the special tool. Let me think a minute. Oh, wait a minute. This thing has a dipstick on the engine. Can I use that? Yes, you can, inquiring mind. All right, so there we go. There's the tranny dipstick. I mean, engine oil dipstick. Well, it's going to be a tranny dipstick in a second here. So, unfortunately, you can just about not see where this has to go. It goes down here. Okay. So, what we're going to do is we're going to pull out the engine oil dipstick while it's running. Not a big deal. Depending on the vehicle, you may get a slightly odd running scenario when you pull the dipstick out because it may seal vacuum into the motor. All right, so we're going to use the regular engine oil dipstick. Okay, now see this? It's clean. I'm showing you this for a reason. If you can look online and you can find it. There's different charts telling you with different temperatures. This thing's hot. So the fluid level should actually be right up about the hash mark for the engine oil. Somewhere in that range. It'll be good. You don't have, just like spark plug gap. It's not that important to be exact, but you want to be close. So, okay, let's stick this in and let's check the tranny fluid. How do you know if you're going in all the way or going in too far? It bottoms out. Don't worry about it. Okay, so there we go. The stick stopped. Now, ready for this? This thing is about 3 or 4 quarts overfilled. 3 or 4 quarts. The fluid's also pretty dark. So I actually have to get some of that fluid out of there. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to get my my sucking device, for lack of a better word, the device that I use to actually remove fluids, the fluid removal device. And we're going to hook that up. We're going to suck some fluid out of there. Hang on, let me go get it. All right, so there it is right there. It's a Mighty Vac. I forgot what they actually call that. But you put an air hose to it and creates a Venturi effect to create a vacuum. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to go stick this tube down that hole before I hook up the vacuum. And once I do, I'm going to pull it up about that much. This way it'll suck down to that point and stop. So here we go, we're inserting the tube. All right, it just bottomed out, so now I'm going to lift it up. Yeah. Roughly there, should be good. Now you can also see, I believe you can see it, the bottom of this container has fluid in it, because I removed that from another transmission. So we're going to see how much we get out of this thing. It's a little over the rib there. So there you see the fluid got sucked up, and you can watch it. Now it's going to go up inside there. It's like one of those, remember those silly straws? Or crazy straw, whatever the heck it was called? It is pretty dark, I will say that. So we are going to we're going to let this thing go. Like I said, I pulled it up. I can always add a little bit if I go too far down. But I'm going to let that go and see what happens. See where we wind up. Like I said, I think it's about 2 or 3 quarts. I could be wrong, but we're going to find out. All right, so I'm going to say that's about 3 quarts roughly that came out. But I got to double check the fluid level now. And I tell you what, it's hot. It's hot fluid. So usually what I do is after I pull that thing out, I will usually leave the vacuum on it for a while, or the air pressure on it, because I like for it to basically get the hose as cleared out as possible. So now here we are with the engine oil dipstick again. Insert it till it stops. Pull it out, and we are still way over full. No, we're going to remove more. All right, let's go back in and we're going to take more out. We're going to go down and then come up a little bit. And then what I'll do too is at the end I'll grab the actual dipstick that I use to measure them when I actually have to measure them. So, but I'm just basically showing you that you can use an engine oil dipstick to kind of verify your level. Alright, so dropped it down some more. Let's see where we are now. How in the world is that even possible that it's that over full? Well, wait a second. In case some of it was stuck on the tube as I pulled it out, which is possible. No, it's just that overfilled. Oh, plus this tube maybe, or this thing may be stopping. This tube actually may be stopping on the inner. There's 2 parts to that tube, so it's very possible it's actually stopping on the inner part of that tube. That's why it's not getting the level down to where it's supposed to be just yet. So I basically stuck it down till it stopped, and I'm going to see what happens. If I got to add a little bit, I got to add a little bit. But I'd rather have the fluid level where it needs to be first. But that fluid is pretty dark, but that doesn't mean anything. Look at my transmission in my van. That fluid's black, but it's the original fluid, and it's got just about 250,000 on it right now. It's like 249 and change. So when I eventually hit 250,000 on that, we're going to do a nice big burnout to show you that the tranny's still holding up. That's my plans. Maybe I could do it by this Friday. Friday's my birthday, so maybe. We'll find out. Okay. All right, back to this. No reason for you to watch fluid getting sucked out. It's kind of like watching paint dry. All right, so it's starting to suck up air again. Now, just so you know, on here, each one of these is a little more, is just under 2 liters. So, what is that? It's, that's probably 4 liters, so roughly 4 quarts already that I've taken out. And I got a funny feeling that that thing has hit the inner tube, or the inside tube or ledge or whatever, so it's going to have to, I'm going to have to go to a smaller tube to get more out if this isn't enough. Oh, hang on a second. Just had a tow truck going by the shop here, backing up, pick up a car. All right. Now there it is. See, the inside tube is right there, and then it goes in a little further. That's the bottom. And yes, we are still overfilled. Still overfilled. So I'm going to have to get the smaller tube for this thing. Now here is the actual tool, the actual dipstick. And this thing has a graduated scale on it, basically like a hash mark. I know it's hard as heck to see. But if you look close, see those lines? You can figure this out. This is not rocket science. It's like a millimeter for each thing. It should be roughly to about here-ish when it's hot, maybe a little bit more, and that's fine. So, but this thing is like severely overfilled. I don't know what somebody was thinking. This is what I think happened. I'd be willing to bet. No dipstick tube, so somebody thought, oh, well, it's shifting funny, so it must be low on fluid, or something along those lines, and they just started adding fluid. And said, okay, 4 quarts, 5 quarts, 6 quarts, that must be good. But that's actually, that'll destroy a transmission, you keep doing stuff like that. You put too much fluid in it, it'll ruin it. All right, let me go get the smaller tube so I can change this. Okay, so really all I did was I stuck the smaller tube inside this tube. Now I'm going to stick the smaller tube down inside the transmission. If it'll go in. Come on. It's fighting me a little bit. Alright, hang on while I try to manipulate this. Alright, so I was having a dickens of a time getting a tube in there, and then I started thinking, well, what if it's actually hitting the stop and not hitting the secondary tube? Maybe that's how it's supposed to be. So you never know. So to be on the safe side, what I'm going to do is where it stops there, instead of it going down to there, see how it'll go even further? And that obviously shows that it's overfilled still. But if I go to that first stop, right there, and then pull it out, which if you look at the length, I put my finger basically to the end of that tube. This is inside the transmission at this point, because the tube that it has to go through, the tube all the way down there. See it? Right there. That tube is only about that long, and I was going down about that far, I think. So that tells me I actually took a little too much fluid out. So I'm going to add a little to it. Now, the fluid that I actually took out of this thing, I'm going to pour some of that back, because the other fluid that was in here was actually from another, this is a 62 TE transmission. The fluid that was in here was from another 62 TE that I'm working on. So I have no problem pouring some of it back in. I mean, it was still pretty badly overfilled. I just started taking way too much out. Just letting the funnel drip off for a second. All right, let's check it again. Sometimes you gotta wait a second. Okay, a little bit more. I think I added about a half a quart of that. A little more, and then we should be all right. be careful getting transmission fluid like on exhaust systems. This stuff is, when it flash ignites, it goes up. Let me tell you. I've seen it before. I'll let it sit for a second here. Might be too much now. Might have to suck some more back out. Oh, no. See that right where that's at? I'm happy with that. That's perfect. So we're going to leave that there. We're going to put the engine oil dipstick back in. And here is the actual special tool, or one of the designs. Oh, it went fast. Yeah, so remember what I told you before where I'd roughly like to see it? One side might be a little bit higher because the tube might, this might go in at a slight angle and sit differently in the oil. So that right there, that's fine. And I put the little cap back on. Now we are going to go road test this. What I'm going to do is, let me go grab a scanner. And actually, let me wash my hands real quick because I got training fluid on my hands. I don't want to get in the customer's car and get training fluid in. Let me do that and then let's go for a ride. Now also, as you see, the level, like I said, each one of those bars is just under 2 pints. So, 2, 3, so that's a good 3 quarts or better. So, quite a bit overfilled. Alright, now so before I go on a road test, I have my scanner hooked up. This is my K10 Bolin. And I want to show you something here. So it does have a code. Let me just shut that off. A P0765 underdrive solenoid circuit. Now as weird as this sounds, usually a underdrive solenoid circuit, usually something like that is an electrical issue. Could be a bad solenoid or whatever. Amazingly enough, I have found when people have overfilled these transmissions, it'll set weird codes like that. I don't know why, but it will, even because those solenoids are submerged in transmission fluid, so it really shouldn't matter. But I have seen that happen. Get the fluid level right, and either it's okay or they destroyed the transmission. I've seen that too, overfilling the transmission, especially this much. That was a lot of fluid. You overfill it that much, you can ruin a transmission internally. Because there's no place for anything to move because everything's locked up with hydraulic, with transmission fluid. So basically, it's like hydraulically locked. If you ever hydraulically lock an engine, it's not good. Usually, you break stuff. Well, guess what? Same thing in a tranny. If there's no room to breathe, things happen. So what we're going to do is we're going to clear this and we're going to road test it. All right. So here, those clear DTCs. Are you sure? Oh, Chrysler cannot be running. Key in the run position, yes. Okay, so no DTCs. Okay, all right, that's it. Let's go on a road test. All right, so far this transmission shift's beautiful. So I'm honestly thinking it's because it was overfilled. I'm stopped at a traffic light right now. But it shifts perfect for one of these. So I honestly think it's because it was overfilled. That's my thought. We're going to get back to the shop. I'm going to recheck. I'm going to pull it in the shop actually again. I just want to give it a once over. And then we're going to recheck the codes too. So, but yeah, it's shifting perfect for one of these. It's got 97,000. Not see, I haven't seen one go bad in 97,000. But had he been rough on it and been beaten on it, it would definitely not be a problem. It's absolutely perfect. All right, let's get back to the shop. Okay, so we're back in the shop. I just checked it for codes, nothing. There we are, no codes. So I'm good with that. Like I said, I'm just going to give the car just a once over just to make sure everything's good with it. Like I already looked at oil change. It's not due for another 1,500 miles. But anyway, I'm just going to give it the once over, make sure everything's good, and then go from there. But yeah, basically I showed you that you can check the transmission fluid level with using the engine oil dipstick. You don't have to use anything special. But just be mindful. I mean, I made that mistake. As you see, I make mistakes. I made that mistake and I overshot the dipstick. I should have stopped when it first hit. I thought it was because the tube comes in and there's like a ramp piece on the inside that the stick has to follow to go inside. And I thought I was catching that ramp piece, the inner tube. But basically what you could do is, like I did, stick the stick in, and you can kind of gauge it when you pull it out and you look at the length of it. If it's about the length of the front cover, then you know you didn't go in far enough. It should go in about 4 inches more than that, about 4 inches more than the length of the front cover, you know, from the head of that tube to the bottom of the cover. But anyway, so that's about it. But yeah, I've seen overfilling a tranny do some serious damage to a transmission. So I've seen it blow snap rings out because there's just too much fluid in the system. And like I said, when it blows a snap ring out, it could take the landing off of the drum, or it'd take a landing out of the case itself and destroy the case. Seen it. So just something to keep in mind. But yeah, so I've seen it ruin solenoids. I don't know how, but I've seen it. Anyway, all right, hopefully getting something out of my videos. If you are, hit that like button. If you could, please subscribe. All right, guys, have a great day. Well, if you want to share my videos, go ahead and share my videos. Tell your friends. All right, thanks. Thanks, guys. Have a great day. Keep wrenching.